Hi everyone, my name's Louisa Rose and I'm the CEO of youth mental health charity Beyond and the founder of a national mental health festival called Now and Beyond that has been running in thousands of schools all across the UK today to improve access to mental health education. I want to welcome you this evening to Circle of Support, which is the last session in Now and Beyond 2025. I'm particularly interested in this session because I'm a parent of 2 children, and so I'm really looking forward to the contributions from the speakers that we have this evening, all who are parents or carers of children themselves. So rather than me introduce them, I'd like to ask them to introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Veronique. I'm a mum of 2 girls, a 15-year-old and an 11-year-old who's neurodiverse.
Hi, I am David. I'm a father to a 5-month-old baby boy.
Hi, I'm Charlene. I'm a mum of 2 girls, aged 23 and 2.
So thank you all so much for joining me this evening. Before we kick off, I just want to explain what the concept behind Circle of Support is and what you'll be watching this evening. So Circle of Support has been co-produced, co-designed by young people themselves to understand better what parents' greatest concerns are so that they can reflect on them. And the way that we're going to do that is we've asked each of our contributors to anonymously submit their biggest worry as a parent. So we'll have a discussion about what those concerns are. But just to kind of flip it a little bit on its head and make it a little bit more beyond style, our young people wanted to join in the conversation. So they'll actually be watching, think Gogglebox vibes. So the young people are going to be talking amongst themselves, reflecting on what it is that we're saying. So I just want to say hi to them first of all.
Hi. My name is Laurel and I'm 10 years old.
I'm Freya and I'm 14.
I'm Berta and I'm 18.
I'm Yash, I'm 17.
So this is how it's going to work. You've all submitted your biggest worry as a parent anonymously, one at a time. We're going to read it out, and if you feel comfortable to claim it as your own, then please do and elaborate on what it is. And if not, then we'll just use it as a kind of starting point for the conversation. So the first statement that has been submitted is, my biggest worry as a parent is social media and how this affects my child's well-being. So if you feel comfortable to tell us who it was that wrote that, then please do. And if not, we'll sit in silence for a couple of seconds and then we'll use it as a starting point.
It was mine. So I've got a 23-year-old, and when she was growing up, social media was kind of in its infancy. She did get a little bit addicted to it, and I'm obviously quite concerned now of my 2-year-old, what's going to happen when she gets to that age, when she starts wanting a mobile phone and wanting social media, and yeah, it really scares me, to be honest.
Yeah, I hear that, and I can relate to that. I'm a mum of an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I'm very plugged into the conversation around social media and mental health. Does anyone else feel the same?
Having a 15-year-old, I mean, social media's really, really boomed, you know, and TikTok appeared when she started getting interested in all of that, and, you know, she had a phone and things. So we tried at the beginning to be really, really strict. You know, you follow the legal guidelines. You're not allowed to have an account until you're a certain age and stuff like that. But we came under a lot of pressure from her, you know, to just do the accounts, to give her access. I have to say she was really good and she listened. We talked about it a lot, but very quickly, as soon as we gave her access, just how do you monitor what she's doing with it? And we saw a lot of differences in terms of parenting styles. You know, some people would actually go through their kids' phones, not respect their privacy, just go through everything to make sure, you know, they were happy with the content and they were not being bullied and stuff like that. Others just didn't even know their children had a TikTok account. You cannot take a teenager completely away from social media. It's such an important part of their social interaction, you know, at school, with their friends. It's really difficult to find your feet as a parent. You know, I'm not quite sure I've figured it out yet.
I don't think any of us have, if I'm honest, and I think that's okay. I'm very conscious that there is a huge debate right now around social media and smartphones and young people, and we've sort of find ourselves, I think, in the UK in a place of, well, if we just ban smartphones, then everything will be okay. There's no room for grey. I think we're working our way through it as a society, but I think it's important that parents and young people and educators and legislators all come together in the conversation to actually address it, because like you say, it's such a big part of social interaction for young people. And I think they look at us as role models as well. So I'm not sure that there's a parent out there who is particularly conscious of what their own interaction is like with social media, in front of their kids. You've got a really young son. Is this something that has crossed your mind, or you feel like you're too early in the stage for that?
A bit of both, really, because my son is really young, while at the same time I have a background in youth work and also work in the mental health space. I think for me, we all know the benefits of social media. So I recently bought a house, and when I want to do something in the house, whether it's putting shelves, I go on TikTok and look at those videos, and I find them really helpful, they're quick. But at the same time, I know also the detriment side of social media. I think the conversation should also be about what are the tools available to me to be able to kind of help my child when he gets to that stage.
So I think what we're all saying is that it's something that's really very much on all of our radar. I have a background in social media marketing and do a lot of work with young people on this subject and their grown-ups. And I think that the key is about open, transparent conversations as much as we can, but also creating a really intentional relationship between technology when it starts to kind of play a part in our lives. But I remember, watching the content on Netflix, Little Baby Bum or Cocomelon or whatever it might be for my child, but that's just a continual stream of programming. And I think for me and for my children, I ask them to let me know when an episode has finished, so that there's like a real intention there that, okay, I'm conscious that this episode has finished, and then it's a conversation about whether or not you're allowed to watch another one.
I know sometimes I'm scrolling, and the other day I deleted one of the apps because I thought I'm just mindless scrolling, and my 2-year-old's seeing that. So I think it's children understanding that we haven't got it figured out, but we're doing what we do to protect them, and that's not easy. And it's useful to hear that it is a challenge for us all.
Thanks so much for sharing that, everybody. I think it's nice to know that we're not alone. So what did you guys think?
When I was younger, my parents would usually just take my phone at night, and sometimes they would actually go through it. That was one of the things that annoyed me, because I always thought they would go on my social media. And one of the parents said, you can't keep your kid off social media. That's true. Like, you can't really keep them off something that their friends are also using, because it's going to make them grow up feeling like they're missing out, and it's also going to make them keep secrets from you.
When I was growing up, my parents never really went through my phone, which I definitely think is because they themselves didn't understand social media or like how to go through my phone. I don't think the way I acted or like my social media presence would have changed if they had gone through my phone. I think just the fact that they didn't, it made my relationship with my parents better, I think.
I think I started using social media when I was about 12, but not like how I use it today. It was more like I'd go on it a couple times a week just for fun, but now sometimes I'll look at it every day, or I'll just...
Do you ever kind of wish that you'd started later?
I do, because I think it's become a part of my daily routine now, and that's not like something I want.
You're the youngest, you're in year 6, I think you
Yeah.
said. Do you know anyone, or do you personally have a phone or have social media?
So I have a phone, although I don't have any social medias because I'm a bit too young. Although I do have a business, and I have an Instagram page, although I'm not allowed to go on it. It's my parents that deal with it.
Do you have like a specific age that you'd like had a conversation with your mum and said like, oh mum, this is the age that I'd start?
I was thinking when I'm 13 or like 12, I don't know.
How will you like stop yourself from becoming like addicted and like doom scrolling and stuff?
Well, I'm not going to stay too long in it because I also got like other things to do, and I think I'll just stay there for about probably 15 minutes, go do something else to keep my mind off it, then probably come back for another 5 minutes.
I don't know if you guys have seen on TikTok, but there's like these TikToks that say like, I have this one friend that I can have silent TikTok time with, and it's like you sit across from your friend and you're both just scrolling on TikTok. It's like, I don't know, I think that's kind of, when you actually think about that, that's a surreal concept, to like go see your friends, to then scroll through TikTok with them.
I'm actually kind of guilty of that. I mean, when I was younger, my friend would just come over, and then instead of actually talking and doing stuff, we'd just be on TikTok scrolling. And I think we did that for like 2-3 hours. But if you're with your friends, I think it's important to just have that time to put your phone down and just talk, do stuff outside of home and outside of school.
Me and my best friends, sometimes when we come out of school, we all walk home and we start talking about our day instead of going on our screens. And I remember one time I went over to my best friend's house, and what we do sometimes is that we put the power off on our phones so that we don't get tempted to go on it, and we like just play with her dolls, and then we'd have like a timer how much time we'd spent. So we'd have 15 minutes of TV, then half an hour for dolls.
The next statement that's been submitted anonymously is, my biggest worry as a parent is that my children will stop sharing their days, concerns and worries with me. So would anyone like to claim that?
It was me. My kids were very chatty from a very young age. I'm really chatty too, so, you know, pick them up. How was your day? And then, here you go. You know, they would just download. So they've gone into that habit, which is great. But then the problem is that sometimes there's a big worry, there's a big, you know, a big struggle, and then they don't feel comfortable. If they don't tell me what's going on, how am I supposed to know if they're okay or not? Because sometimes it's not what they say, it's the little things that you pick up. Their tone of voice has changed, you know, the way they're referring to a certain friend has changed. They stop talking about a certain friend. And yeah, if they don't say it, how am I supposed to know? How am I supposed to help them?
It's really interesting listening to you talk about how open your children have been in the past, because I pick my son up from school and I mean I get nothing. And it's really interesting because there must be a balance somewhere between, you know, because I think, and I'd love to hear your perspectives also as someone who's worked with young people, but our role as parents is about creating safe spaces for our children to share their concerns. And those spaces just might look slightly different. And they'll certainly look different, like, you know, for each family. But does anyone else have that fear?
Yeah, I mean, I've got experience of that with my eldest. She did kind of cut off a little bit around the age, sort of quite young actually, sort of young teenage years. And it was really difficult to kind of get that back. And we probably haven't got that back. And I think it is really important to have someone else that they can talk to. Maybe that's not their parent, maybe it's another family member, a cousin, a friend or something like that, just to make sure they have got that person that they can talk to. And I recognise with my daughter, my older daughter, that it probably wasn't me at that time, but actually I did find her making sure that she had people to talk to, because it is really difficult. And actually, to some degree, I think that was related to social media as well, and chatting to people online and stuff like that. And yeah, I think it sounds great that you've got that close relationship with your daughter as well. But it is a challenge and it is really difficult.
David, as a new parent, is this something that you've thought about?
Me as a teenager, I wasn't someone that would go home and debrief, because maybe home for me didn't feel like a safe space where I can do that. I also think as children grow up, I think when we're younger, primary school age, our village, our community is very much, our sense of identity is very much our family, our parents, our siblings. But as we're trying to discover our own identity, our friends in high school, university colleges, they become our village, they become our community. So we tend to go back to them for some advice and some conversations about mental health and everything else. I think what's important is, I think something you've done so great is that your kids know that home is a safe space to go back to. So regardless if they're not having those conversations with you at the moment, because you've already fostered that safe space, when it's time for them to go back, they'll know that safe space is there, which is something that I feel like some teenagers don't have, or home is not that safe space for them to have those conversations. So early on with my baby, when he started to speak, and just making sure the home is a safe space for if he wants to speak and just for him to feel comfortable.
I often laugh when, you know, my daughter comes home and tells me that she's got that worry or that trouble and she's spoken to her friends about it. And I just always tell her, it's like, come and talk to me, you know, because if you go and speak to your friends, you know, your friend might be 2 months older than you, but what do they know about it? Come to an adult who can actually help you. I think it's really important for them to have that community, you know, people to relate to, people they can share with, people they can grow up with. One of the best advice, a few of my friends who've got kids that are slightly older than me, said to me, you want to be the home they all hang out in. Now, we are one of the homes that the kids come in to hang out. But we stay home when they are. So it's not that we watch what they're doing. It's not that we keep an eye on them, or we do a little bit. But we want them to be comfortable hanging out in a space where there's parents, because there's also homes they go to do things that we don't really want them to do. While when they hang out, you know, at our house, we know they're safe. We know where they are. We know they're not doing anything that is harmful to them.
But I do also think, and I think this comes from the work that I do, and I think that David probably, from the work that you do, that we also do need to let them make their own mistakes to a degree. I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, they should be doing anything wrong, but from the moment that a child is born, your job is actually to help instill these really resilient, independent children that don't need you. And that's terrifying for me. I don't know about anyone else.
I think it is really difficult, and you're right. The minute you raise them to go out and be independent, and that is hard. That's hard as a parent. And as a mum of a 2-year-old, you know, I'm seeing every day she's starting to do more and more herself, and I just think, oh, she doesn't need me as much, even now, and it is really scary. So it's definitely something that's on my radar for this little one. So
I think that was really, really insightful, and what I've taken away from it is about creating safe spaces for your children, whether or not that is with you or with their friends, but it's an outlet for them. But I'm not sure we have the answers, and I think that's probably what this entire discussion is around, is that we don't have the answers.
I think that as much as it's a valid concern, they were talking about creating a safe space for your child, and part of creating that safe space is not like making them have a conversation with you, because I think there are topics that you might find embarrassing to talk to your parents about, not because they're wrong or anything, just because it's not, you know, that they're your parents, not your friends. And obviously that my friends are my friends for a reason, because I enjoy talking to them and because I think they have helpful advice. And even if they don't, I learn from my mistakes.
There are some things that I will always go to my mum for, and it is most of my life and most of the problems that I have. But there are also some things, like if I know my friend is going through the same thing I'm going through, then I'll go to her and I'll talk to her about how she dealt with it. But even no matter who I'm talking to, my mum's created such a safe space that I know I can always go back to it.
Of course, but I don't think it's so much about whether or not your parents have created a safe space. Like, I also think that my parents created an incredibly safe space for me. They'd never tell me off. They'd always let my friends hang out at their house, and as the woman in the video said. But I think there are just some things that you don't, not because it's not something against your parents, and parents need to not take this as a personal attack, because I know my parents were very like, oh my God, Berta's like never going to come back to me, whatever. It's like, no, there are just some things that you would rather discuss with your friends.
So I think it's quite important to like talk to your parents, because there's some things that you need to talk to, some things that not really that important.
But I think parents also need to learn to differentiate what is like important for you to talk to them about, and what is like things that aren't necessarily going to affect you much, that you could just talk to your friends about. It's like, but that doesn't mean it's not like a crazy thing that you're doing that you should talk to your parents about.
It's not that parents should get involved with everything that their child is doing, but it's when you're noticing that it's having a negative impact on your child, that's when you should get involved.
I had a friend and he was really struggling, and sometimes you're in situations where you don't know whether you go to an adult or not because of what's happening. Because I thought that I was like helping my friend, but I really wasn't, and it was draining me. And like when you say parents get involved when it starts affecting their child, my mum got involved, and it did actually help because it took a bit of pressure off me.
For me, I think just having my parents be so open and not telling me off most of the time made it feel like a safe space.
Part of the reason a lot of children struggle to go to their parents is because they're scared of like the consequences. As kids, we don't get enough credit for recognising when something's wrong, and so I think parents do need to sometimes lay back a bit and more of a you personally acknowledging what's wrong or what's right or what happened or what went wrong than your parent having to tell you, and I think that definitely creates more of a safe space.
Okay, so our last worry. My biggest worry as a parent is whether I am doing enough to support my child's development. Anybody like to claim that one? Yeah, on you go, David.
Surprise, it's me. So my boy has reached a point where I feel like every day or every week there's a milestone he's reaching, whether it's trying to communicate or mimicking what we do. And I just wonder, as parents, am I doing everything I can to make sure that he can flourish and grow? And speaking to other parents that have older children, I'm sure you can probably say the same thing, is your worries change as they grow, they're different. But I guess the overarching worry is just making sure they've got the tools and they've got everything they need to be able to grow at whatever stage they have. So I think at this stage, that is my worry as a parent. Am I doing everything I can to give them a safe space?
I can really relate to this one because I'm just thinking of when my children were, younger. I've got a 5 and an 8-year-old, but when they were, a few months old, and every single day it was like, okay, well, what should they be doing now? And am I doing everything I can to support what they should be doing? And I found that really, really difficult. And there was like a real pressure that I think we put on ourselves, but definitely comes from sort of the external narrative of, what a good parent is. And I can relate very personally to so desperately wanting to give my children the tools that they need to navigate the world. But I mean, I wish I had the tools.
I can relate to that very, very strongly in terms of supporting a neurodiverse 11-year-old into developing, because that's a very, very different journey than a neurotypical child. So I feel like, I had one child and you feel quite comfortable. You're like, I've done this, now I can do it again. And then you go, yeah, except it's not the same at all. So you get used to that and supporting them, and then you get comfortable in that role.
Do you think that it's that we actually get more comfortable with feeling uncomfortable?
Yes.
And that's probably what it comes down to?
Yeah, and I also think it's about being honest that we don't have all the answers. Like, our kids come to us about something, and I think it's fine to say, I don't know, let's navigate this together. Again, that's something I've probably not done in the past, thinking, I know all the answers. And we don't. We are learning all the time. And I think it's good to have that open and honest conversation with our children. And I think it does change when they're little. Obviously, I've got a 2-year-old, gone through all those milestones when they're little, and by one, why she's not talking or whatever. And there's so much pressure, and the pressure does change over time because obviously I've got an older one as well, but it's different. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as parents.
I don't think any generation of parents before us has been as pressured to be good, so good at being a parent. There's so much focus on the importance of parenting that suddenly we're supposed to achieve incredible standards in a job that we're figuring out how to do. And nobody's training us. You go and work for a company, people will train you.
I don't think the world has ever been as complex as it is, and I don't think children have ever grown up in as complex a world where they have to navigate so many different complexities, because they, close the door at the end of the day and they are not closed to the world. Whereas even if we think about like the war generations, even in the UK or wherever, back then you would close the door and the only access to information would be on the radio.
With my parents, when I was young, they were quite adamant on trying to make sure that everything was perfect. And most of the time when they tried to be too perfect, things would just end up not going the way they want. And it's a learning phase. I personally see it as a learning phase.
Seeing the relationship between the children that I babysit and their mother. When something goes wrong or when something doesn't go exactly to plan, she doesn't beat herself up about it. She's not like, oh my goodness, whole day's ruined now, that's it. And her kids are understanding of that. I think children can sense when their parents are trying their hardest, and I've never seen her kids get angry at her and be like, oh my goodness, like bad mother. No, it's like, okay, mistake was made. It's annoying, but it's not that the annoyance or the anger is not directed towards the parent. So I think with children, it's very important to remember that their annoyance or their anger isn't going to be directed towards you as a parent for making a mistake or because a day came out wrong or whatever. And also, as children, we understand that it's also their first time being a parent. As you get older, you kind of understand.
One of my friends, I know, like, I think it's the more that I think she's in like an awkward phase right now where if something goes wrong, she's so quick to blame her parents for it.
And even when like children are going through this phase, I think for parents it would also be valuable to remember that actually you're just the easiest person to blame for all these mistakes and problems that are arising, not that they just directly hate you.
I think similarly, parents should also understand that when something goes wrong, don't vent towards your children, because eventually they're going to mimic that frustration towards them back, and then it can get into a whole different mess. So just understanding that when something goes wrong, just take a bit of space out. It's sort of like the things that young people learn in school, like review and reflect. Like do that when something goes wrong, so you don't have that feeling of, I'm messing up as a parent, I'm not doing this right, I'm not doing that right.
And like mistakes are natural, mistakes are going to be made. You kind of just need to accept that and not beat yourself up.
I don't think that parents have to be perfect because they have to make mistakes.
And that goes to show that children do understand it. Like exactly. You're 10 and you're telling us that parents make mistakes. Like that shows that we are understanding.
For me, the biggest takeaway from all of this has just been that it's okay not to have the answers. What's the takeaway for you from today?
My takeaway is that I can't wait to hear what the young people are going to have to say about what we discussed, because we might not have the answers, but I really, really believe that they have a lot of the answers.
I mean, I can't wait to hear what they say as well.
For me, it's two things. I think the first one is around the worries that parents have, and I think as a parent you become more resilient and better equipped to support your child, but also think I have to make conscious effort to grow with my child and give them the space to grow as well. So I think that's my main takeaway. I think the other takeaway is just giving young people the credit sometimes that they can support each other in a positive way as well.
I think it's so hard to do as parents to trust in that, but I think it's critical that we get there. And Charlene, what's the takeaway that you're going to leave with?
So a couple of takeaways. So I think for me, it's recognition that first of all, it's hard being a child, and actually it's hard being a parent, and having those open conversations together and saying, let's navigate this world together. And the world is constantly changing with social media and growing up, developing and all that sort of stuff. And it's being as included together as a family as you can. And I think, as others have said, it's creating those safe spaces that as a child does develop, does grow up, that they've got someone they can talk to and feel safe with. And I think having really open and honest conversations around mental health at a very young age and throughout a person's life, and making sure they've got that support network is key.
So that's just about all we've got time for today. I want to thank you for joining. I really hope that you found it useful. I want to thank Charlene, David and Veronique for joining me today, and the young people. Thanks so much for taking part, guys.
Thanks.
So this has been the last session of Now and Beyond 2025. We have wrapped for another year. I want to thank all of our supporters, our partners, the lesson plan providers, all of our workshop hosts, and all the young people that have been involved in making this happen. Thank you so much to the Beyond team. There's no way that an event like this would have happened without them. And we will see you next year.
Bye.
Bye. I can't. That's so cheesy.